cybersecurity for small businesses. As Scott said, small businesses are unique in that they may not have the budget of a Fortune 500 company, but they are targeted readily by cyber criminals because they do have some juicy information in terms of social security numbers, bank accounts, all the things that cyber criminals want to go after for identity theft and personal information and financial gain. So today we're going to go over the essentials. If you walk away from this webinar doing nothing else, please do put at least some attention to the essential points we talk about. Then if you are in an industry that has compliance, or you just have trade secrets or a lot of personally identifiable information that you want to safeguard, do take careful stock of that and consider the secondary safeguards where we'll review sort of the next tier. Then we'll review some of the more prevalent and frankly frightening trends in cyber attacks. And last but not least, we'll give you a sort of playbook on how you can take what you've learned here today and apply it through the help of your IT provider. Okay, so these 5 items are what we consider the essential layers of defense. Switchfast practices defense in depth. So when we look at how to protect an IT environment, we talk about multiple layers, and people say, oh, well, you know, why can't we just have antivirus and call it done? The reason is because these threats are constantly evolving, and the cyber criminals are adapting to overwhelm and overcome defenses. So a layered approach, typically with different vendors, is your best strategy in protecting yourself. The analogy that we use is a castle. You know, you wouldn't just protect a castle with a drawbridge. You would put up as many defenses as you could. You dig a moat around it. You would have a gate behind that drawbridge. You'd station guards at the top to keep an eye on things. And you'd also be prepared to perform repairs as needed for your castle defenses. So similar approach and strategy in IT security will pay the best dividends. So right out of the gate, everybody knows the importance of passwords, but do you know if your passwords are complex enough? Are employees out there using ABC123 because it's easy for them to log into the computer every morning? Most Windows domains you can set forth a domain policy that forces users to add complexity to their passwords, and that could be the length of characters in the password. We recommend 8 or more. It can also be the addition of special characters and numbers. Numbers are obvious. Special characters like $, exclamation point, punctuation, so forth and so on, like that. That makes it harder to guess the password through a brute force attack, and that's a valuable first line of defense. And as much as you ask people to do that, enforcing it through a policy can really be helpful. Mail security. This is a great service to have in the cloud. You know, the cloud is talked about a lot with small business. You know, get it into the cloud, get it into the cloud. Not everything works in the cloud, but email security is a fantastic one. Basically, it acts as a filter, and anything being delivered to your email server, no matter where it is, will pass through this filter and get scanned for viruses and spam messages and bad URLs, depending on the quality of your email security filtering system. And you pay a monthly fee for it, but per user, typically per month, but it's a fantastic cloud-based defense system. Especially since email is one of the prime vectors for these cyber attacks to come through. Web security. You know, everybody needs to be able to browse the internet to do their job and get information nowadays. But you, as an employer, have the power to limit where they can go. And also, you as an employer can put in defenses that will scan the information coming from a website before it is allowed on your network. So web security typically takes the form of a firewall. It's a hardware device that sits at the perimeter of your network and scans traffic in and out. But it can also have additional features such as classifying websites and denying access to known bad websites, you know, torrent sites, pornography sites, basically non-work related sites that you wouldn't want employees going to because the likelihood of a breach is increased when you're visiting those sites, and also just keeping people on task with their day-to-day job. Antivirus is the oldest and most common form of protection. The problem with antivirus is they're often chasing their tails. They're based on definitions. So they build a definition to identify the virus signature, the virus fingerprint, and then if the cyber criminals modify the fingerprint, then the antivirus software could miss this new variation coming through. So do we say, oh, you don't need antivirus because it's not as effective as it once was? No, on the contrary. A lot of these old viruses remain in the wild, remain out in the internet being spread for years after they have their most profound impact and you know, make headlines in the news. So you definitely want to maintain good antivirus. And last but not least, when I talked about repairing the castle, there are going to be certain cases where a breach or an event or some form of data loss happens and you need backup. Backup is your ultimate line of defense and one that you should put an incredible amount of attention to. How often are you backing up? Just once a day, overnight, or more frequently? We typically back up our customers every hour to minimize lost work. And then how long does it take to restore the data? What does the restore process look like? If the server were to be damaged or attacked and be completely unusable, what sort of downtime for your business are you looking at? So those are good questions to ask your internal IT or your outsourced IT provider and get those answers ahead of time so you're not surprised. So, you know, what happens when you don't place attention on the essentials of security? You're basically flying without or swinging without a net under you. For example, we had a company who was not actively engaged with us and not taking advantage of defense in depth. And they became infected with a ransomware virus, which I'll go into greater detail in the later slides. But basically, their data was locked through encryption, and they could not access it. So, you know, when we did a post-mortem analysis on it after getting them all fixed up, it was basically they had decided to skip the costs of email filtering and running all the paying for the security service subscription on their firewall. In addition, they did not run antivirus on their systems because they ran older systems and they felt like antivirus software bogged down their systems. And last but not least, they had an ineffective backup system where somebody was just taking a backup drive off-site every so often when they remembered and storing it at their home. And that was their form of backup. So all of this saving money month to month led to a week of lost data because the person controlling the backup hadn't taken the backup, hadn't checked the backup frequently enough. An entire day of downtime, they couldn't service their customers, and on top of that, our IT bill to repair everything for them. So short-term gain is often long-term pain when it comes to IT security. So if you are a company that deals with sensitive data, as I said, you know, you're a staffing firm, you have social security numbers, your own HR department, regardless of your industry, may have health information, social security numbers, payroll, all of this stuff. But you owe it to yourself to consider those that information and the security of it and the importance of it, and consider these additional layers of defense. So encryption, laptops roaming around, a lot of road warriors. We see it time and time again. They leave the laptop in the car, just go in someplace to have a quick meeting with a customer or run an errand. The car is broken into and the laptop's taken. Now, aside from the loss of hardware, that's loss of information. Anything on that laptop, the hard drive can just be pulled out of it with a screwdriver, connected to another computer, and everything on there can be read, even if the cyber criminal doesn't know the password. But with the help of encryption, disk encryption, everything on that hard disk is jumbled up, and the only way that it can be read is with the proper password, which should be strong. That way you're protected if the laptop is stolen, left on an airplane, left at an airport, anything like that. You can take some comfort in the fact that no data can be read from it. Similar encryption is available on most cell phones nowadays. iPhones, Android phones, and Windows phones can do encryption and have the same effect. Two-factor authentication, again, returning to passwords. A user could technically circumvent the complex password requirement with something as ubiquitous as password 1 with a capital P and a 1 at the end. It exceeds 8 characters in length. It has a capital letter. It has a number at the end. So the computer may identify that as a complex password and allow that, but I guarantee you that password is probably the second one everybody tries when they're trying to hack a system. So two-factor authentication is an additional layer of defense that we see used, especially when accessing systems externally through a VPN, webmail, maybe a SharePoint site or intranet site. Two-factor authentication is something you have, your phone, combined with something you know, a password. So what happens is you enter your password, and then a text message or an app on your phone will prompt you to enter a 6-digit random numeric code. And once you do that, then you're protected. That way, if somebody does happen to guess your password, unless they have your phone and are on your phone, they cannot gain access to the system. So it's a good two-factor system to further protect those external-facing servers. A data recovery and business continuity plan carries the conversation of backup and restore to the next level. It's basically designing around a catastrophic event. So it's all well and good if you know that you're backing up nightly or hourly and how long it would take you to restore. But what if your entire operation was damaged? The facility is flooded or burns to the ground. Theft occurs with multiple workstations and servers taken. How do you handle that? How do you communicate with your customers? These are the questions that get answered through a business continuity plan. Communication is key. Someone heads up the business continuity plan to communicate with customers. You communicate internally with your resources as to where to set up shop, and then you also need to procure replacement hardware and software. So it's an effort that's time well spent if you have a business that your clients depend on regularly, and you being down for a week at a time due to a catastrophe is completely unacceptable. And last but not least, employee training. Scott will have options for employee training to send out to you or discuss at the end of the presentation, I believe. But employee training, teaching your employees to be suspicious. You get an email from the bank saying, please log in, wire transfer pending, but teaching them to look hard at that email to determine if there are any typos or anything else that would indicate that it's not actually from Chase Bank or Charter One Bank or something like that. Also teaching them to, if it's asking for transfers of money in or out or a password or anything like that, maybe your best bet is to call the bank. call your banker that you know with a known good phone number, and inquire if, in fact, the request is legitimate. All too often we see these phishing emails, these emails that try to trick you by posing as a legitimate entity, trick the end user into providing sensitive information like a password or an account number, and then wire fraud can occur. In addition, if you're in a regulated industry, HIPAA, SEC, or any of your clients are regulated, you owe it to yourself to investigate IT audits. This is a third party that'll come in and review your systems and even your HR practices in some cases, soup to nuts. And it should be an independent third party, not your outsourced IT, because that would be a conflict of interest. So it's fine if you turn over the findings of the IT audit to your outsourced IT or internal IT department to fix, to remediate, but really you want to keep them separate so that you get no conflict of interest. Let's see here. And oftentimes people say, oh, it's too much, too costly. We'll be fine without the server for an extended period of time. We can work through our paper documents, or all I need is a cell phone and I can conduct my business. But I really challenge you guys to take a moment and maybe turn off your server and feel what that sensation is like and what business can be actually conducted in that scenario. And that can help guide you to determine what is the best compromise in terms of security and cost. Viruses prior to 2012 were largely annoyances. There were some that could steal information, but the new trend in cyber attacks is ransomware. And it's very a frightening trend, and it's not going away anytime soon because it's so lucrative. Basically, crypto wall, crypto locker, you've probably heard about them in the news. Someone gets an email saying, hey, visit this website or open this attached file. It's, you know, from your bank or from UPS or FedEx or the IRS. So they're tricked into activating a phishing attempt. Once they do that, the virus goes active on the system, and your antivirus software, again, may not catch it because it may be a new variation. What it starts doing in the background is cataloging all the information on the infected system, and it starts encrypting the files on the system, Word documents, spreadsheets, QuickBooks files, so on and so forth. And in encrypting them, it makes them unreadable to you, and then they hold the keys to unlocking that encryption. And encryption it's government-grade encryption, so no IT provider can crack it for you. You need the keys to get into it. And really, then a pop-up appears, and they demand anywhere from $300 to $3,000 paid to them in Bitcoin, which is an online currency and untraceable. And your options are to either pay them, which the FBI does not recommend because it often funds terrorist or criminal syndicate groups, or to restore from a good backup. So this trend is quite damaging, and most of the time we've seen it, we have to go to backup. So protect against this by being suspicious of the emails that you get, especially banking-related emails. FedEx doesn't send you attachments typically. UPS doesn't send you attachments typically. The IRS doesn't communicate through email. They call and send certified letters. So be suspicious. Also, silo your data. If the intern in the office doesn't need access to HR and your trade secrets, make sure that they're isolated through file permissions, and you can talk to your IT provider about that. So if they were to get infected, guess what? The entire pool of interns, or if your salesperson gets infected, maybe the sales team is impacted, but your accounts receivable and accounts payable departments can keep running, your delivery systems can keep running, your production systems can keep running. So silo your data. And also software as a service or cloud-based applications like QuickBooks Online and things like that can further protect you because those online files cannot be infected through this sort of ransomware. So, you know, you can't expect technology or IT provider to solve all of these things for you automatically. It has to be a conversation. It has to be a partnership. So make sure you talk to your IT provider, and if you're an executive in your company, be at the table, ask these questions and hear the answers and determine the cost benefit of how you're currently protected and if you need additional protection. Your IT provider should have answers to all of these questions. None of these things are surprising needs for a small business, so they should be able to speak to them. Yes, they are in place, or no, they are not in place, and provide you guidance and cost analysis in terms of what it would take to get you protected fully. If they are not, if they don't have a lot of good answers, again, a one-time IT audit from a third party could definitely spurn them into action, or at least give you an independent view of the status of your IT environment. So do seek that out.